welcome to this presentation about the sound of Unrailed. Unrailed is a game. I will tell you a lot about it, and especially about the sound. And the subtitle of this presentation is What Happens When Two Composers Are Working on One Score. And two composers, that's me, Mathilde Hoffmann, and my boyfriend and colleague Felix Barbarino over there with the bird on the t-shirt. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, briefly telling something about us two. We both studied called music design, so we are both composers and sound designers. We've been studying that for 4 years, and now we share a small sound studio together. This is our working space. So you see it's two computers in one room, but it's no problem since we both have a part-time job at a sound recording studio, and I work there from 10 to 14, and he works there from 14 to 18, so we are never in the same room at the same time, so it's perfect. We're not in trouble here. And then we got a request from Daedalic Entertainment, and they were asking for a sound designer and a composer, so we were like, that sounds perfect for us, and we want to do it together, and we accepted the offer. So you know who we are now, but you don't know what Unrailed is yet. So let's have a look at the trailer first. Yay. So yeah, what you should have seen in the trailer is that it is a game about trains. It was a student project, but now it is being published by Daedalic. And so we wrote an offer to them, a very humble offer because the budget was not really great. So we said we would look at the sound effects that were already existing for the game and work on them. Then design about 50 new sound effects and compose a soundtrack, which is a title theme, one interactive music track, and a win-lose jingle. So we thought that if there are several biomes, it would be cool if we have like one track and it will change depending on how the weather is and on where the biome is, if there's snow and stuff. So take a look at this and forget it again, because as you know, game projects, they get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and the ambitions get higher and higher and higher. And yeah, we were very naive when we made that offer, but you will see later. But at this time of the project, we still didn't know what was coming towards us. So yeah, what we wanted to figure out, since we're both sound designers and composers, and we thought, okay, 50 sound effects versus one track, that's a bit imbalanced. So we wanted to do both, music and sound design. So we had to figure out a way, because two composers, they have different kind of taste, they have different kind of gear, different plugins, different ideas. So we wanted to get together and find what we think is for us both the right aesthetic as of sound for the game. So we did something we call a songathon. We had 1 hour each day for 1 week, and in that 1 hour we tried to compose a track for the game. And then at the end of the week we showed each other the tracks and tried to find out which one is suiting the game. So some tracks sounded like this. Then we had one track sounding like this. I mean, it's a game about trains, so the Western feeling kind of got through with that. A little bit more romantic approach, maybe, might have heard this track before. So yeah, exactly. This was also a track that we made in the Songathon challenge, and we sent all the tracks to the developers and asked them, okay, what do you think about them? And then suddenly the trailer was published with this music, so that kind of solved the question, okay, which track should we use? We knew it should be something similar to this. So what we did as a next step was we created a template, because as I mentioned, different composers, we have different plugins, different gear and stuff, but we do have the same music software, and that's why I want to show you something. Yeah, right, there it is. Exactly, this is our music software. It's called Reaper. It's actually pretty not expensive and great. It's the best. Everybody use it. Woo! And exactly, so we did this template based on the track that I just showed you, and I just want to show you some of the funny instruments we used for this template. We wanted to have the same instruments for every track, so that if we do more than one track, and spoiler, we did more than one track, then we would have the tracks still sounding like they came out of one person, or at least, yeah, that they belong to the same soundtrack. So I want to show you the Bernard Herrmann library. You might know the horror movies from the 60s, like Psycho, and Bernard Herrmann was the composer and conductor of those horror soundtracks. So they made a music library with with an orchestral sound that sounded similar to this old aesthetic. But we found out that it is a horror orchestra, but it sounds very funny, actually. So I want to demonstrate to you some of the sounds of it. I mean, this is kind of the most horror-y sound there is in the library, actually. I mean, whatever. But there's also very funny instruments somehow, like, let me see. Yeah. Yeah. I love this, and I used it a lot in the score. What else do we have here? Yeah, we have like trills. Exactly. So yeah, I think it's a very, very charming sort of sound. And one thing we did with this library is, if we look at the settings, 1 second. Where's my mouse? There it is. Yeah, we put this thing here to close, and we put the reverb to 0, because we wanted the orchestra to sound very close to the listener, because the whole Unrailed game, it feels like it would be like kind of a sandbox game, or yeah, where you're playing with your toys and you feel like you can actually touch it, and we wanted it to feel more close, so we took all the reverb away, put the slider to close, to kind of have this aesthetic of yeah, so some sort of toy orchestra. So that's what we did with the Bernard Herrmann, and I'm going to show you how this sounds everything together. Maybe this part. Yeah, it sounds very toyish, playful, close. Exactly, so that's the Bernard Herrmann part. Yeah, exactly, these folders actually play a part later, so remember that. Synth, it's basically just the sounds that didn't fit in any other category. Sounds like this. Yeah, nothing too special. Plucked, that's actually kind of funny. It's a lot of very cheap instruments that we could both afford as poor composers. It's like $2 instrument libraries that all have their kind of own charm because they are so cheap. They are kind of badly recorded, but that makes them also very nice in a way. So this one is, for example, a piano that has a felt put on the strings, so it has this plucky sound. This one is also very nice. This is a banjo that actually Felix himself recorded. It's the banjo of his father, and he made an own instrument out of it. Woo! Yeah, whatever. I can't really play the piano, but I will try to play. Woohoo! Yes, thank you. Also, this one here is also quite nice. This is also a kind of joke we allowed ourselves to make. So the instrument sounds like this. Yeah, it doesn't usually sound like this. Usually it sounds like this. It sounds a bit like a normal guitar. But what we did is we put the decay a little bit down and the release all the way down, and all of a sudden it just sounds like, okay, that was a bit too much. Let me see. And then we get this very characteristic funny sound, so yeah. All right, so that's the plucked part. Multi is just, whatever instruments that didn't fit in the synth category, but didn't fit in any other category. Basses is pretty self-explanatory what this does. Let me show you. Yeah. Exactly. And drums, last but not least. There are also some of our own sampled instruments here, this percussion section, for example, and what would be an indie game without 8-bit sounds, right? So we downloaded some retro 8-bit drums and used them as a part of our drum kit. So exactly, the drums sound like this. The part that I love the most is this. Exactly, and everything together, as you know, it sounds like this. Yeah, you know this track by heart now, I think. So yeah, what I wanted to show you with that is that we set our own set of rules. We wanted to have funny instruments. We wanted to have sounds with a short release and very little reverb so that it sounds very close and Teufel. We also made the rule that everything has to be in 4/4, I don't know the English term, but yeah, 4/4-takt. So because the world of Unrailed is made out of cubes, so we thought that was a nice detail. And every piece that we make for this soundtrack has to be done with this template. We only had these instruments, to work with. And I think that's actually pretty good thing to do, even if you're working alone, to do for a game soundtrack, because if you define the characteristics of the soundtrack beforehand, then it will be more likely that the soundtrack will be sound like one unit and recognizable like that. So yeah, it's something I love to do, and it worked very well on this project because we were 2 people and had to make it sound like it's one soundtrack, even though it's made by 2 people. So yeah, the idea was that we wanted to make an interactive track, and of course there were different biomes, but the problem is that you stay for 10 minutes in one biome. So we had to find another solution to make the track interactive so that it wouldn't get boring. So we looked at what elements do we have that we can try to apply to the soundtrack, and there are bandits in the game that are trying to steal your stuff. The train can overheat and burn. There is weather. You can see 2 raindrops here, and it's night. And the train is approaching the end of the rails, and it's about to derail or unrail. That is one thing. Or the item can get lost because it's a side-scroller game, and if you leave your bucket at the left end of the screen, and it keeps scrolling, and you might lose it. So there is a warning for that as well. So we thought, okay. So we analyzed, and we made a graph and tried to analyze what is happening when and for how long, and how can we apply that to the soundtrack. And we had the realization that everything that's happening is happening very short. It's just so short distances. Like, for example, the bandit. You can see it here. It's like, if this is 1 minute, then in 1 minute he's like 2 seconds stealing something. Then not, then again, then not, again. I'm going to show you a video to demonstrate. These are the bandits, and they're trying to steal, but as soon as you approach them, they go away again. And then they try again, then they go away again, they try again. Now they finally get one, but then they drop it again. So it's like very hard to track that. If we would do it in the music kind of, it just wouldn't work out that well. So that was one problem we had. Also with the fire, the thing is that you use a water bucket to not delete the train, to
extinguish.
Ooh, nice, thanks for the help. Extinguish the train, exactly. So so that is also the same problem. We already always had the full bucket next to the train, so whenever it overheated, we were already prepared to extinguish the train, and the same thing for the fire. So if we try to build up something musical there, like some sort of dramatic music, and then you just put water over it and it's over. So we couldn't really count on that music-wise as well. And then there is stuff like the item and approaching the rails that's just happening once in 10 minutes. And if you establish a musical theme for that, nobody will ever remember that because it's only happening once in 10 minutes. So the only thing we had to work with was actually the weather that was really consistent over a period of time that we could work with. So we made the following decision. Fancy animation incoming. Woo! We're only gonna apply the interactive music to the weather, and everything else is being told through sound effects. For example, heat and fire. We have a constant train layer that sounds like this. If it's overheating, and if it's burning, it sounds like this. Yeah, pretty straightforward, but it works. And so if the bandit manages to steal one of your stuff, is that sound? If the item is about to fall off on the left side, and if you approach the train rails, yeah, exactly. So as for the weather, this is where it gets interesting. I'm going to show you the way we solved this with a track we all know by heart right now. that's the way we solve the weather. And there is also one special kind of phenomenon in the lava biome, where there is another type of weather that looks and sounds like this. We didn't know it looked that extreme until 2 days ago, because before it just did like this. But yeah, we got a gameplay footage 2 days ago and was like, whoa! But I want to show you again my music software, where I want to just quickly explain to you how we did the weather effects. So this is the track, and for the rain to sound rainy, we used a lot of. Maybe you know, if some of you are audio guys, you know the dry-wet slider of like reverbs and delays, and I mean, it's simple, but it works. If you put it all the way to wet, it actually sounds wet. So we used delays and reverbs to go for that wet sound. For example, the drums without the delay sound is just, but with it. Maybe you can hear it like subtly, like the brrr kind of sound that comes from it. This is very subtle, but here you can, maybe hear it a little bit more, the echo effect. And this one is also pretty straightforward. There we have a pitch modulation that's also changing the echo to go up and down, and it has this watery feel. So this is fine and well, but now we just put a lot of reverb on it. And all of a sudden it sounds like it's very wet. But that was not enough for us. We wanted to do some extra stuff. Because we overestimated everything. But yeah, so we did this synthesizer pad that kind of sounds to me like dark clouds that are slowly like going by. And we also did this layer. I mean, it's pretty boring if you turn off all the effects, it's just like... But if you put all the effects on, then it has this rainy feel to it. So it's a pretty nice acoustic rain atmosphere in the background. So everything together. Yeah, exactly. And the fog is pretty similar. Everything basically happens here on the group folder. Like if you do it without, it sounds normal. And you put this on, it's very simple. It's basically just filters. Take away all the highs. Use another filter. Done. That is basically it. I mean, we have some delay and chorus to put a little bit more movement in it, but this is all the secret that is to making a sound foggy. But that was not enough for us, so we did some extra layers like this synthesizer pad that I have to activate. Yeah, it's just some layer. And this one is also quite nice. It's a flute that has very much air in its sound. So I think it sounds a little bit like these ship horns, like or like a Nebelhorn. I think it has this kind of vibe to it. So. That is the fog effect. Then we have the earthquake. which is like this. We have a lot of detuning going on here. So this is a detuning plugin, and as you can see, the mix knob is turned. The mix knob here is turned halfway up, which makes it kind of funny because if you bypass it, it sounds like this. Just quickly. But with the effect, it goes. Which is nice because you still have the original sound, so you know which was the original tune, and everything still fits together, but you still have the weird detuned signal that's going on at the same time. It also sounds pretty funny here. This is actually the sound of my nightmares. If you bypass it, it sounds like this. It's already pretty bad, but look at this. I think it's pretty bad already. But yeah, the thing that really makes this composition weird and upside down is actually on the master effects. We used a cassette emulation that I want to show you. Just a second. It looks like this. And as you see, the motor quality, we put it all the way down. So that it really is like a cassette whose like tape is like all the way sloppy. And that makes, we just put this twice because double is better. And then it goes like. Maybe this is not the best part, maybe like. Without. And with the effect. Okay. We need something to calm down our ears now. So we're going to look at the night layer, which is a bit more pleasant. So what we did for this is something we call the Nightstrument. It is another instrument we made ourselves. It's my voice and Felix's voice in the low notes, so it's. And my voice, I can actually play it. Yeah. And everything sounds better with reverb, so. Much better, right? So yeah, what we did is we rearranged all of the soundtracks again with our own choir, kind of. And the tracks from the actual soundtrack, they are very much in the background. And as you can see, bass and drum layers are muted. So it's just very subtle. And then the arrangement of our own choir. So, as I have now already spoiled you, we did not do only one track. We have a track for the lava biome as well. So we actually have tracks for every biome now. And the reason we decided to do that was that it was not really clear what the transition between the biomes is. So as you can see in this video, I mean, we are already in the winter biome, but we already see the grass or the Alp biome. So it was kind of unclear should we do the transition of the music? Should we just do it like here? But this is 8 times faster than the original gameplay, so it would be a very slow transition. And there's so much other stuff going on, like there's rain and fog. And if we do another transition as well there, I think it would be too much. So we were thinking a lot about that until there was a game design change that changed everything anyways. And there was no transition at all anymore. So now the way you play this game is that you have to finish the rails until you reach a train station. Inside the train station is a shop. And in the shop, you have to buy another engine to get to the next biome. So yeah, that opened a whole new world of possibilities for us. We were thinking about maybe doing a track then that starts when the game starts, and it keeps going until you reach the next train station. And then we could maybe do a fancy build-up, and it gets more exciting the closer you get to the train station and stuff. But then we found out that the player can actually put in the settings how fast the train will go, so we couldn't exactly plan how long it's going to take. So there we had that problem again. So the solution we thought of was like this. We decided, okay, since the Alp biome is always the first one you play, and so it will be the one you play the most often, because if you fail, you have to play it again and again and again. You have to play it so much until you get enough coins to buy the new engine for the next biome. So it will take a long time to reach space, and you will play Alps very often. So we decided, okay, 5 tracks for the Alps, and 1 track for space should be enough, because nobody's going to get tired of it, because nobody's going to ever reach it. But yeah, so we kind of split it up like this: 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The reality is that we only did 4, 4, 2, 2, 1 by now. The game is still not released yet, so who knows, but the thing is that we also had to compose 4 weather layers for each of these tracks. So right now we are at a soundtrack length of 2.5 hours, which is already quite a lot. So yeah, who knows if we actually do the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, but I think like this it's also working out, and we decided a good length for the music would be 3 minutes of music, so that it doesn't change too often, but it is really necessary to have a pause in between. This has some reasons. First of all, since the aesthetic we chose is very snappy, very funny sounds, but I've heard from our QA testers that they got fed up with the music very quickly. Since the soundtrack is so kind of original, funny, quirky, it just is nothing you can listen to all the time. So it's good that we decided to take a little break always in between the tracks. Right now it's even a longer break. I think we're at 1.5 minutes now. Also, since we are both musicians and sound designers, we also wanted to feature the sound design and the ambient sound a little bit. So it's nice that in the 1.5 minute break, you can also listen to just feature the sounds a little bit more. So it's a good trade for us, but I think if the composer and sound designer were not the same person, there might be a conflict here, but yeah, we solved it this way. So I want to show you just a quick best of the soundtrack for each biome, just a very short snippet. The Alp biome with the funny tracks that get annoying quickly. For the desert, we had the idea to kind of look for stereotypes that you already have with desert. For example, we kind of picked up the Western idea again, so that it sounds like... and then we also wanted to do the kind of, snake thingy, the Fata Morgana theme, so... Also a track like this. Yeah, for snow, I mean, what would be a snow soundtrack without bell sounds in it? And what would be a snow soundtrack without jingle bells in it, like this? Yeah, and as for lava, we went, maybe you can't see it clearly here, but since you always have to cut wood and stone to craft the rails, here you actually have to cut down pumpkins, Halloween pumpkins, instead to use them as wood for the rails. And there are like these funny little ghosts and creepy hands coming out of the ground. So we wanted to make a mixture of funny and a bit spooky. So this is a more funny version right here. And a bit more spooky version. Yeah, and last but not least, bass, which is made by the same template, but it really sounds a bit different like the other tracks. And one thing we decided to do here is that we start the track with a soundscape that then slowly fades into the music, which sounds like this. This is the ambience. Not part of the ambience. And do you remember the rule about everything being in 4/4 beat? But this sounds like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So did we break the rule? Idea to kind of confuse the listener a bit about, is it now in 3/4 or 4/4? Because in space you don't really have, you know, anything to cling on, and you kind of lose the sense of gravity and stability. So we also wanted to confuse the listener by mixing it up a little bit like this. And in the end, the music fades back again into the soundscape. And this is really what I love about this project, is where things like this, where sound design and composition kind of comes together and becomes one. And this kind of co-working is what I want to talk about. Smooth transition. What was it like to work together on a score? Because since we could do stuff like this, have the sound design blended into the music, I want to talk about how it is working in a team, both working with the developers. I want to talk a little bit about this, because we have never actually really met them in person yet. Just this one guy, he was in Hamburg once, but yeah, we've never met. But we decided very early on that we would have a Skype meeting every week. We have a Skype meeting every week for half an hour something. And we started this 8 months ago, and we still keep doing it. And I think it's a very good thing to do, because first of all, they don't forget us. I mean, you maybe know it from game development that sound is sometimes pushed a little bit further back in the development process. But like this, they were always reminded that we are still here. And we were always reminded, oh, Unrailed is still a project that we have to work on. And we always had this mini deadline that we knew, oh shit, we're going to have a Skype meeting. Let's do maybe like one sound effect for that at least. So yeah, it was actually quite good. And yeah, we had the Skype meeting. Otherwise, we used Google Drive in the beginning to share like gameplay stuff and when we wanted a build to test the game, they just sent us an exe file through WeTransfer. We sent them through WeTransfer our sounds. They put it in the game, and the rest we discussed on Skype and WhatsApp. This is a very inefficient method of file sharing, so now that we've further advanced in the development, it's pretty cool since the game is on Steam now, and everybody of you has to wishlist it. Yeah, since we have a Steam beta key now, we always get automatic updates, and we don't have to ask for a build. We just get the latest one they upload without having to ask for it. And we use now the audio middleware Fmod, where we can ourselves replace sounds, change their volume, add more sounds and stuff. So that makes it much easier. We don't always have to like, oh, this sound is now 3 dBs quieter. I'll send it to you so you can put it in the game. We can just do it ourselves, and it saves them a lot of time, it saves us a lot of time. So it's very good that we have this now. I wish we would have had this earlier, but maybe all of you can take the lesson and yeah, try to implement those things as early as possible. We'll also have GitHub to access the Fmod project together. Yeah, this is really nice. And as for the co-working with my fellow composer, Felix, it was pretty nice, as I already mentioned, that we are working at different times in the recording studio, so we didn't really get in the way of each other. But it's also a bit sad because this is a co-op game, of course, and so you have to do some things together, like testing the game. And if we're testing the game, then of course one person might know stuff that the other person did not know, or like, like, what do you think about this sound? Do you think it fits? And I think that's a very important part of working together, that you can always ask for a second opinion, like, do you think this is too much? Do you think this is okay? And what we did is everything we made, we had the other person listen through it and give feedback, and everything we sent as a team. For example, the soundtrack, we never said who did what track. We just said it's from us. So that made some funny situations where the developers were like, oh, thank you for the new tracks. I especially love this one. And then one person is like, yeah, he liked my track. And the other person is like, oh, what about my tracks? But then there were situations where it was the other way around. So it was okay. But yeah, that was the thing we did. We did everything together and did never say, like, this is from me or this is from him. It's our soundtrack. It's our game. And yeah, it's very good to have a second opinion on stuff that you do before you send it to the developers. So we did our file sharing through Dropbox. Yeah, as you can see, it's a big data chaos. It's not very tidy. You can see all kinds of weird stuff like Kürbisskerne, Hostpfeifen. It's a sound effect that I wanted to send to him. I think this is actually the sound for the overheating now, because if you burn pumpkin seeds in a pan, it actually does this high sound, so if you ever need it. And yeah, like all kinds of sounds. So this is not a very good example of file sharing, but we only used it to send each other stuff. For example, like Night Layer, Mathilde, it was like when he was sending me one track and I wanted to make the Night Layer out of it, or if I get stuck with one track, then I can just give it to him, send it on the Dropbox, and he can work on it a little bit more, and I know when I come back from work, maybe he will have worked on it. And yeah, so this is just for exchanging files, but what is very important is that one of us was the owner of the master session, and the master session is very important because every finished sound effect, every finished track in the game was loaded into the master session, and there we did the levels so that everything is on the same loudness level. We also looked at the lengths of the tracks, because the layers, of course, have to have the same length so that the rain layer doesn't loop at a different time than the normal layer or something, then it would just all become chaos. So we watched for that. And another thing is the naming. Naming is also very essential. So I want to show you something else, which is our acid list. Yeah, which is like this. We listed every music, every sound effect that we did. And as you can see, it's probably more than 50 as we planned in the beginning. But yeah, so we have here the SFX category. Then we have a name. It doesn't matter really what name it is. What it matters is that you define the name once and you stick with it. So it was very important that in the master session the name was right. And this is an explanation for the programmers, what we want to have this sound for. And if we are already doing it, which is also important for working together as composers and sound designers, because what we also did, like, put things like in progress. That meant that if I come home and I think, oh, now I want to do some sound design, let's look at the asset list, and I see, oh, Felix has already worked on this and this and this sound, so I don't have to do it again. So this was very important for us, and then the programmers could just say, have they implemented it yet for us to test or not? So this is also a very important thing to do always in every game project. Please do it, it's good. And yeah, so, and the master session, and I was not allowed to touch the master session. Felix is the master of the master session. It's good that only one person knows everything is in place and in order. Yeah. So yeah, what I can conclude from working together is what was very good, that we established these rules like 4/4 and the template that we did. Very good that we had the master session with right naming, right levels, and the asset list. One thing we could have maybe done is have like the Skype meeting, something similar for us both, like just constantly every week have some sort of appointment where we just sit down together and play the game together, because we would have to do it in our free time or in weekends, and you don't really want to work on weekends or in your free time. So if we just had found earlier a time and place that we could do this together and just talk about the things that we have to do together. So this is maybe for the future. But one thing that made our collaboration a little bit special, and since this is a co-op game, we decided we want to kind of put the game aspect into composition as well. So we gave each other some funny challenges through the process to make it not boring. For example, this instrument is a very funny instrument. I think it's one of the most ridiculous sounding instruments I've ever heard. Yeah, exactly. So I challenged Felix to put it in his soundtrack, in one of his tracks. So you have to listen later when you play the game, if you find the instrument, and tell me when you find it. That was one of the challenges we did. Another challenge we did was we took tracks that we had already finished composing and challenged the other person to take something from that track and put it in their track and hide it somewhere. So, for example, in this track, so this is a track we had already finished, and then one of us stole it. And put it in one of the desert tracks. So as you can see, the rhythm is basically the same. It's another tune, but also the weird chords with the add 9 and the sus4. It's pretty much the same. We stole the rhythm and put it and hid it in the track. So if you know it, it's pretty obvious. And also for this next example. All of a sudden we have a Baroque remix of that in-game track. And the last one, it's very hidden, but I want to show it nevertheless. And it appears in the winter track. This is pretty well hidden, but if you take this part here, da, 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 and then I just slowed it down. So I'm going to show you the comparison with a little bit sped up. The second version, maybe it's more obvious then. So yeah, this is, if you ever have a writer's block as a composer, just steal something from another composition and put it in your track. No, don't do that, but we allowed ourselves to do it. So yeah, this is almost the end of the presentation. I just wanted to conclude with this, that I think for this project, it was very good that we did these challenges because it's a co-op game. So we also wanted to make the composing of the soundtrack a little bit to turn it into a co-op challenge, to do it together. And I want to send you off with the last track that we did not do with the template, because this is the shop in the game. And it just looks completely different, like nothing else in the game to me, because we have this, this grid. It looks like something you would doodle in your boring math lessons. But so we have this room and it looks like nothing else in the game. So we decided, how about we put a radio in this room and make it sound like the music is coming out of the radio in a large hall. And that is the last track. Is it? Thank you for the attention.